So we really hope that during this event, you guys will be able to kind of open the doors for mental health discussions among each other and with your teachers. We wanted you to come here with your English classes so that you can continue to talk about the things that are brought up during this panel with the people sitting around you and with your teachers, and keep this conversation going, because our mental health is something that is always affecting us, so it is always something we need to be working on. So this doesn't always just end with just one event that you guys come to. It needs to be an ongoing discussion, and hopefully this event can offer you some insights and new perspectives that you can bring into conversations that you have with your peers and catering to your own mental health. So hopefully you guys know what the note cards are going to be. And so now we're going to get started with the event. We're going to have our first three speakers introduce themselves and tell you a bit about why they're here.
My name is Teresa. I'm a parent, and I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist currently working at Santa Clara County Mental Health. I'm very happy to be here, and hopefully I can help answering some of your questions regarding mental health issue.
Hi, I'm Noah Kretschmer. I'm class of 2013, and the reason I wanted to come and talk today was to kind of destigmatize openly talking about these sort of things. I mean, like they said, this is the first time they've done this, and I feel like this is one of the first times in many schools that this has been done. I also kind of want to make sure that people realize that it affects all people in all walks of life, in all ages. It's not just kind of a specific. Oh, it might feel like it's only happening to you, but it's happening to way more people than you think.
Hi guys, my name is Brandon Doe. I'm a junior here, and the reason I'm here is because I've had my own mental issues. I've been fighting depression for a little over 3 years now, and I'm speaking for those who can't speak for themselves, because I can't sit around knowing that there are people out there who have felt the way I felt when all they've needed was just a little love, a little hope, and I'm here to give that to those who need it. So.
Okay, so now we're going to have our next two speakers, and hopefully the third one if she arrives on time, talk a little bit more about who they are and kind of give you a little bit more of their stories so that you know the kind of people who are going to be talking here on this panel.
All right, hello everyone, it's on now. So I'm glad that you're all able to be here today and participate in this conversation about mental health. But yeah, so my name is Dee Dee. I'm an alumna, and I only graduated just last year. And so I'd like to talk about my experience. So during my time in high school, I began experiencing symptoms of depression in my junior year, and this would be an episode that would last for more than 2 years. And I don't believe there was anything that could have, like, quote unquote, caused my depression, like any single factor that just instigated everything in terms of things going on at the time. But at the beginning of junior year, I started losing energy and motivation to do anything. And like I had a few mini meltdowns before then where I just spiraled into psycho-negative thoughts. I felt like I had too much homework to handle. I felt like I was very alone and isolated, and there wasn't anybody that I could talk to. And I was just going into a not very good place. And I couldn't complete like my homework effectively because it was very hard for me to concentrate. So that would lead to me like staying up really late, trying to do everything, and I would sleep less. And it was one of those cycles of stress that just fed into itself. And like the physical weight of the stress was actually a physical weight on my body, but I told myself that there wasn't a problem. Or rather, if there was a problem, it was my fault. I evaluate everything that I felt like I hadn't done well. I compare myself to other people and what I felt like they had raised themselves up to, but I hadn't reached, and a lot of negative self-talk like that. And I was just mentally berating myself and just dissecting every failure that I felt like. And it was this sort of hail of emotions felt very overwhelming. And yeah, not very good. So at that time, I didn't tell any about this, and I thought that nobody else around us would feel this way, and that I was the only one because I was weak, which wasn't actually true. But I wanted help, and I was too afraid to go out to ask for it. And so I was faced with a dilemma near the end of my junior year because I've been dealing with that for a few months. But I faced the dilemma of I wanted help, but I was afraid of reaching out to other people, and I want support, but yeah, I was afraid to open up. And I wonder if I had depression because at that time I was still unsure if I did, and I realized that the question though wasn't really about whether I had depression or not. It was about whether it was about whether I believed I deserved help. And so eventually I realized that because this was affecting my life, I deserved to get help. And so I started reaching out to people. I reached out to teachers at Mission. I reached out to the school counselors, and eventually I reached out to my family too, and they helped me get professional help. And so everything didn't just like magic get better from there. I spent the next year dealing with suicidal thoughts and a lot of other things. I still experienced ups and downs, but in the end, it was a lot better because I had support then, and I had people who I could talk to and who I could get help from. And so at the present moment, things have improved. I've gone to therapy, I've gone to medication, and a lot of what I want to say right now is just that you're not alone. No matter what you're going through, no matter what you're experiencing, you're not alone. And if something is affecting you, your life and your relationship, then it deserves notice. And we don't always talk about mental health at Mission, but it's as valid an issue as any other. So thank you for listening.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Helen Sue from the City of Fremont Youth and Family Services. Sorry for being late. I took a little tour of your campus this morning, walking tour. And I really am excited to be here. Mission has a special place in our heart. We have a counselor here who's only here 2 days a week. But also, I think, similar to many of you, not all of you, I can relate to just some of the challenges of being here. I was an immigrant from Taiwan. We came when I was not quite 4. So there were a lot of issues, just the fun things about growing up in a bicultural household, that there are benefits to that, sort of the great food and some of the things I learned, but there were a lot of challenges, especially as I got to actually middle school and high school, between my parents not really understanding the universe and not understanding anything about what it's like to go to school in the United States. And as an adult now, far advanced in what I'm doing, as a psychologist, I'm what they would probably call mid-career at this point, which largely means I have the benefit of I train master's and graduate students who are going to become therapists, which is a huge privilege. But so I'm a few years out, but even talking to my mom now about, students have faced way more pressures now than I did, but I said there was all kinds of things going on. And for example, I mentioned that, there was harassment and bullying and even drugs at my high school, and she literally said, "Oh no, that was a good school. That was an award-winning school. That's why we moved to Cupertino." And I said, "Mom, every school in America faces these things, And so it really was like a clear gap of maybe how the adults, especially if you have immigrant parents, don't quite understand all the things that are going on in daily life. So I feel really lucky that I have a career that I absolutely love. I think that's a little rare. There's a lot of people in Silicon Valley who have careers that make really good money, but they're not necessarily that happy. And I saw a lot of them when I used to have a private practice. And so it means a lot to me that when you're young and you're sort of making your decisions, that you can kind of be okay with the fact that you're gonna make mistakes along the way, and that sometimes the advice you get may or may not actually sit with what is gonna work best for you. I needed to make a lot of those choices and be okay with plan B and plan C, knowing that it's, that it's okay. I think at Mission there's a real push for excellence, but sometimes that means people can get really narrow-minded about what your goals can be. In some ways, they say I was lucky because my brother really shocked our family by joining the United States Marine Corps, which everyone was like, what? He joined the military? And we kind of thought that my older brother was going to be the one to kind of meet all the family obligations. But because that was so shocking and definitely not approved of, it kind of let them, as long as I went to college, fine, whatever, do whatever major you want, even if we're not sure what the heck the psychology thing is. So that gave me a little freedom. And just briefly, you know, we'll talk some more about other things. Recently at the science parade, I had a sign that said, I'm psyched for psychological science. And I met a lot of other psychologists when I was out there. People would come up and say, I'm a psychologist. Oh, what are you? You're in research. Oh, I'm clinical. And then I met one woman, and she had a great sign. And she said, policymakers, please make decisions with your prefrontal cortex, not your amygdala. I said, I love your sign, you know, and I'm a psychologist. What are you? And she said, oh, I'm just a mental patient. And I said, oh, well, that's okay. I've been that too. Many of us have been that. So that's the important thing I also tell people is there's no such thing as like practitioners and clients. We are all clients, practitioners, caregivers, loved ones, friends of people who are sometimes going to go through stuff. And it's really important that we all keep that like communal sense in mind. Okay, that's where we'll start. Thanks.
Okay. Hello. My name is Emily. I'm a current junior, and I haven't really talked about this before, so sorry if like my voice cracks or like I talk too fast. So why I'm here today is because I'm supposed to give like a summary of like my mental health story. Sorry. Sorry.
We're going to move on to our question and answer session of this event. So right now you guys can take some time and write down any questions that you might have on the index cards that were passed out to you. And then if you raise your hand, one of our people will come and collect those cards so we can ask those questions to this group of panel speakers who are up here. So we're going to start now with one of our moderator questions. So maybe 2 or 3 of the panel members can talk about this. What method or avenue do you think could help high school students, and what constitutes professional help? Is it a hotline, a counselor, parents, or a psychiatrist? What do you think are good resources that high school students can reach out for?
For me personally, I know that a lot of people might struggle in finding help and they might not even accept help. But for me personally, I was reaching out. I really wanted to find someone else who was going through what I was going through because I didn't want to feel alone. And feeling alone is, you know, one of the most dreadful feelings ever. So I resorted to comic books. The reason why I read comic books is because they're all superheroes, right? They do all these amazing things for other people. And the reason why they're superheroes is because they've gone through their own darkest times. You know, Batman's lost his parents, Spider-Man lost his uncle. And knowing that these stories are written by people who have gone through what I've gone through, you know, that's comforting. And, you know, I've been reading comic books for all my life now. And, you know, that's one of the ways that I cope, so.
As much of, not a cliche, but I guess something that a lot of people say, writing helped me a lot. Literally, if I was feeling really overwhelmed, just pulling out a notebook and writing because it gives your mind something to do. And if I didn't write, I would, you know, aggressively search for anything to do that would keep my mind active. Because for me, the biggest kind of trap that I can fall into is having idle time and an idle mind. You know, especially coming from a school like this, like Mission, where it really is, you know, a constant grind. For me, if I'm doing anything, whether it's something like washing the dishes where my hands are going and I can think about it's not quiet, that helps me. So just, kind of fighting through the really big urge to just kind of sit on the couch or lie in bed, and getting up and doing literally anything is for me what most often helps.
Okay. So I already said, so all of those coping mechanisms sound good, and but it definitely depends on a person. Like each of you will have something different that will work for you, and that's something I think for you to figure out. Going to therapy actually I think is one method of doing that. It's one way of developing like the tools that you can use to better improve your mental health and better cope with stress and everything like that. I did go to therapy for a while, and I found that, for me, I found that it was of limited help actually, but I know that for a lot of people it is one of the things that truly helps them cope with life. But there's this huge stigma against professional help in general, I think, like whether that's going to therapy or whether that's going to get medication, because people don't seem to want to, seem weak. And I guess I would like to say that it doesn't make you weak to do any of those things, to reach out for help. And it's actually one of the strongest things that you can do, to open yourself up and be vulnerable enough to acknowledge that you need the support of other people at the times that you most need it. So some other avenues of like some other tools and things that have helped me were medication. I did take medication. I had to try 3 times before I got the right combination. But when I did get it, it's not like another like magical pill that cures everything either, a fix-it-all type of thing. But it helped decrease the severity of my symptoms immensely, so that I was already able to like function beforehand, like for the 2 years before I got medication. But once I had medication, it was helpful in just making life even more manageable. And for me, my depression specifically, it sort of made life feel like very empty and meaningless. Like it was a lot of emotional stuff, like things happening in my brain that I didn't have much control over. So for me, taking medication helped a lot with bringing my emotions back in balance.
Okay, so our next question, maybe another 2 or 3 panelists can address this, is how can students help their peers they see might be struggling?
So the way I've experienced it is that my friends didn't really know what to do when they found out about my condition. And in many ways, I just needed someone to do things with, to sort of distract me. Not necessarily, you don't need to find out, what's wrong, and you don't need to find out necessarily the root of their problems, but just knowing that someone is there for you, in your darkest times, that's comforting to know. So.
As a friend, I think there's so many roles, and I think being there is just one, that people sometimes make things worse they just want to make it better. They just want to make it go away. But then you're really annoying, and you give a lot of suggestions, like as if they haven't tried that, or, and you're not a professional. And it's okay to just say, oh gosh, you're having a rough time. I'm worried about you. I care about you. I don't even know what to say. But like, I'm here for you if you want to hang out, and I'm here for you if you want to go find resources. Like, a lot of parents will tell me they also avoid conversations even when they think something's going on with their teen, because they don't know what to say. And it's like, don't be afraid that, there's information and there's resources, to just say like, we'll go figure it out together, and I'm just here. And to encourage someone to get another level of help if you really are seeing that, like, wow, you're doing stuff that's kind of dangerous, or I'm really worried about you, it's really affecting you. And that's huge. And especially you all are old enough that, you know, there are times that it is friends and peers that help convince someone to go get professional help. Or I've had, you know, teens go talk to other people's parents and say, look, you may not know that she's doing something that's really dangerous and we're worried. Or bring their friends to counseling. Like, you all are like at an age where you know what's up sometimes way more than possibly the adults in your friend's life. And to really push them to like go for health and find the solution, and just that you'll be there even if you're not sure exactly what the answer is. You guys can find it together.
I just want to add one thing, that do not keep promise that your friend that you will keep secret, you know, because in case, well, there's really something dangerous, you will not keep that secret. And also, you rather to have a very angry friend, you know, looking for help for them, instead of you will have the angel friend who is no longer there. And I just want to add that.
Okay, so again, I just wanted to say, if you have any questions, please write them down on your note card and raise your hand. This will be anonymous. We won't say whose note card it is. Okay, so our next question is, what would you say to students who are suffering in silence with a mental health issue?
Well, I would say that I will let people who suffer from mental illness secretly that you are not alone, because a lot of people suffer from mental illness, and based on the research, Dr. Shi can correct me if my number is not right. And one in 5 adults suffer from mental illness when they are doing their survey during that year. And kids from age 13 to 18, 1 in 5 of them suffer from severe mental illness and during their lifetime, which means, well, either when they are doing that survey at that time or previously. So a lot of people suffer from mental illness, and a lot of people do not getting help until things really getting worse. A lot of my clients telling us that they've been suffer from years, you know, without treatment, and until symptoms really affect their life, affect their relationship, affect their work, affect their school, and they have to get some help. So you are not alone, and helps are there, and people do care.
Kind of adding to that, a lot of people I've found feel that whatever they're feeling doesn't necessarily warrant getting help. You know, they feel that I feel this way, but someone definitely has it worse. You know, my symptoms don't seem that severe. All of these kind of denial tactics to themselves. And while, yes, someone may have it worse, that doesn't take away from what you're feeling, and that however minute your condition may, or your feelings may be, they still are your feelings. And if you really sit with yourself and you think that you need any sort of help on the really big spectrum of what getting help means, get help, because it is much better for someone to say, oh, this is what you have and here is, you know, 5 solutions, than kind of coping with that by yourself and letting it get bigger than it should or would have been otherwise.
Yeah, I think that holds very true, because when I was, you know, going through my worst times, I thought that, you know, how I felt isn't as bad as how the next person felt, you know, and you don't know if, you know, like emotions like crying is appropriate or not, because I'm emotional. I cry at home sometimes, and you know, you think to yourself like, oh, I'm a guy, you know, why should I be the one who's shedding tears? And over the years, I have had to learn that, you know, crying is acceptable. You know, it's the way you feel, and you shouldn't be bottling that up, because that only makes you feel worse. So.
Okay, so we've gotten some audience questions, which are great. So the first one is, do you think high school is too late to really help students with dealing with their mental health?
that's definitely a no. Because I think, well, for me and for a lot of other people I know, high school was when we started getting help for mental health. Like for me, I reached out to a lot of people like near the end of my junior year, and then at the beginning of senior year, I started treatment, going to therapy, trying medications, and one other thing is that it's never too late to get help. Like some people wait months to years and to get help and they try to deal. They've been trying to deal with like everything that they're feeling by themselves this entire time, and they might feel that it's too late for them. Like they're always going to be stuck this way, that they're never going to get better. But I think that that's not true, because this help is always out there to be accessed. And as long as it is accessed, then there is that chance of recovery, and there is that very strong possibility that it can get better.
Thank you. That's actually a really great question, the issue of when do you get help? Because we do have counselors in elementary school too, and we know now that especially for anxiety disorders, a lot of that actually starts when people are just kids. And of course, there's no age at all for when just stressful things might happen, like divorces and moving and illness and loss. But that said, as much as I prefer to do early treatment and prevention, it really never is too late. I even used to work in a geriatric daycare, so senior citizens. And people would say, like, they're not gonna change, like, they can't change, and that's not true. Is it less likely? Yeah. But can people change whenever they want to? Yeah. We are dynamic in that way. So, and in fact, high school is a really good age, because between 15 to 25 is when you guys have the most pressure, the most rapid change, fantastic, brain neuroplasticity, but also puts you at a lot of risk. So all my friends who are in college counseling centers, and then everyone who works in high schools, really just know that it's actually a really ideal time that if you have a small problem, to take care of it and deal with it and move on, because it does get a little harder as you get older, but it's definitely not ever too late.
I also think that high school is a really good age to start developing these good habits in finding what helps you and finding what works for you, especially since the next step after high school for most people is college. And I think that having a really good sense of self and a really good knowledge of what works for you at again, another big milestone in your life is if you can get that by that time, is amazing. And if you feel the need to get help later on, maybe throughout college, that's also great. But I think that if right now in high school you're feeling, is right now a good time? I've been feeling this for some time, and maybe I should just focus on something else, on my school. It really is a perfect opportunity to utilize the resources that are being given to you, and in such an amazing amount of opportunities given to you, and develop these techniques with the help of others, so that when you as you graduate and move on to college and beyond that you have, that you are as educated and as knowledgeable and as comfortable with yourself as you need to be, as you get older.
Okay, so for our next question, maybe 2 or 3 panelists can address it. Is therapy always the right choice for someone struggling with depression? I hated it, but it still helped me.
I went through therapy. Initially, I thought it was pretty strange, especially admitting my feelings to a stranger. And he told me stories like, your mind is like a cassette tape, and what's playing right now is a sad song. It's something that you probably don't want to hear, so let's take that out, put it on the shelf, grab another cassette tape, and play that song instead. And I thought, well, that's weird. Why would I want to do that? But he gave me these analogies, these stories that made everything a little bit easier to understand. He told me a lot of things that helped. And yes, I initially thought it was strange, and in some ways I hated it. But it did help, and it's one of the reasons why I'm still here today. So.
I guess I can't say that therapy is the best option for everybody, but in terms of like research-wise, medication and therapy together seems to be the best, the most effective method for helping people get better or feel better. But I would agree with what Brandon said about like when you go into therapy, that you're able to get a better understanding of what is going on with you, and of a better understanding of what's a better understanding of how it's not your fault in a sense, and also of how you can view this, your mental health, like from a different perspective than you were before. And one of the analogies that I heard was of mental health as well. It was about how if you got a cold and it got worse, you would definitely go see a doctor for it. But for our mental health, when it gets worse, we actually try to bury it even deeper, and we don't seek help for that. And it was just an analogy of how our physical health and our mental health are both as important, and there's a stigma against mental health that shouldn't be there, but it is there for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, so in summary, I think therapy might not be for everybody, but it's something that I think could definitely be considered, and it's not something that you definitely have to continue if you feel that it's not helpful for you.
Yeah, I would add something like if for depression, it depends on how severe the symptoms are. If it's really severe symptoms, if the person is at a higher risk of taking their life, and medication will help in the very beginning, and after you stabilize, and therapy will help. The research shows that both medication plus therapy will really working. And also I would like to say one thing, that every person is very unique, and every therapist is very unique too. If you try one therapist and you try, for a period of time, if you feel like it's not really helping you, and it doesn't mean that therapy will not help. Maybe you could find another therapist who could really connect it to you much better. And everyone, well, I personally love to talk to my friend. A lot of them are therapists. We try to help each other out, and it's very safe for you to have a space for someone who could listen to you and without any judgment, and guide you and just support you.
Okay, so the next question is something I think we should all ask ourselves. If two panelists could talk about it, that'd be great. What can we as a student body do to change the stigma around mental health?
Like, talk about it. If someone gets physically injured at school, you don't kind of, try to hide it and not talk about it and look the other way. If someone breaks their leg and they walk on with crutches, you sign their cast and you say, how'd you break your leg? And, it's a whole story, and they get better at some point. And in a lot of cases, the same is true with, or can be true with mental health. It's not something in any sense that someone should be ashamed of. But with where we are in a society, it a lot of times is. And I think the first step in remedying that is just not skirting around it. And if someone wants to talk about it, then have a discussion about it, and just being as open and receptive to someone else's feelings and their what's going on in their life as you would want someone to be for yours, as really cliche as that sounds. But I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward, but it does take effort. But I do think just being open to talking about it will go really far.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, we're not here to tell you guys sad stories about ourselves. I mean, we're here to, yes, tell our story, but the reason we signed up is to help those who need it the most. Events like the Peer Resource Benefit Show, the people who walk up on stage and talk about their stories, it's not to make you guys go home and sulk for a night and then, go the next day, forgetting everything. They're there to really show that, no one's alone in their struggles. And so, yeah.
Thanks. I just wanted to add a quick comment. I totally agree with all of that. School climate and community climate matters a lot. That you all know if the people you hang out with or your family are like helpful and receptive, or if they're super judgy. And so I'm running a Mental Health Awareness Day benefit at my CrossFit gym this weekend. But like the slogan on our shirt is, the more you know, the less you judge. Get aware and, learn the facts. You would be less judgmental. I mean, the fact is that in a room this size of this many people, I absolutely guarantee you that some of you are going to lose somebody that you really care about, if you haven't already, to suicide, or you're going to have to help somebody through a major mental illness. It's just absolutely statistically guaranteed. So are you going to be the friend that they're going to be willing to turn to? Are you going to be the one who's going to cut down when people are making dumb, crazy jokes? Or are you going to be part of the problem? And so really being mindful about that, and that's a constant little thing. Even to this day in my friend group, sometimes I'm like, hey man, that's not funny. Or, hey, he's acting this way. Maybe we need to kind of ask him what's up or pull him aside or whatever. And really being a person in your school and in your other communities who can be there and be a mature and supportive and non-judgmental person.
Sometimes it feels like many of my peers are so accomplished and talented and set for life. How do you deal with the pressure of never feeling you can be as good as them or not being good enough?
Okay, so I really feel that question. Personally, I live in LA. I'm an actor, and it always seems, especially with social media, that all of my friends are super successful and they're booking all of these jobs and all of this stuff. And I had 2 auditions this month, and like you were saying, every person is unique, and it's you're gonna feel that way at some point. At some point in your life, you're going to feel like you are the least successful person in your friend group. And I think what people kind of in that moment don't realize is that success isn't one point in your life. Being successful is a whole, it's years. It's not one moment. It's a lifetime. Only after a lifetime can you look back and judge that. So, right now when you're 15, 16, 17, I know it doesn't do much to say that, trust me, you're going to be successful. But for most people, that's the case. And for every person, what success is completely different. And you are going to find what success is for you. I guarantee that you are. And I also guarantee that someone else that in your friend group feels that way about you. They feel that you are super successful and you've got it all together. And it's just, everybody feels that way, and it's a completely valid thing to feel. But know that mostly everybody will become some measure of successful at some point in their lives. And then if you aren't right now, that just means that you will be at some point.
Okay, so the next question is, how can you talk to your friends without feeling like you're dumping all your problems on them and feeling like a burden?
In many ways, I struggled with that problem because I didn't want to talk to just my therapist. You see your friends every day, and they're sitting right next to you and they don't know that you're feeling all these feelings. And I'm not saying that this is the correct way to do it or this is the better way to do it, but when I wanted to talk about it, I just let it all out. And if they're your friends for a reason, they're not going to say like, oh, I don't want to talk about this, let's change the subject. They're not going to do that to you. They're going to give you the best support that they possibly can give. And if, you know, crossing that barrier is still a problem for you, I mean, we have counselors at school. You can talk to people like us. We're all here with open arms. So.
Does anybody else want to answer that? The question, how do you talk to your friends without burdening them?
If your friends are truly your friends, they're not gonna care that you're talking to them. Like, they'll be grateful. Like, if you need help, then they'll recognize that.
Okay, so the next question. I have a friend with severe anxiety and an uncle with bipolar disorder. What can I do to help them feel comfortable?
I think you would have to ask them, actually, because they're the ones who know what they need and what specifically works for them. And I guess in general, too, being there for your friend and your uncle or whoever else might need it is one of the most important things that you can do, just to show that they're not alone and that you are willing to help them. And also, this is another more general thing for everybody, but I think sometimes we worry a lot about whether we're going to like say the right things to somebody or whether we're doing the right things for somebody. But oftentimes, I think listening is actually the flip side of that. Listening is the more crucial aspect of it. Like when you listen to what they're saying, when you're trying to understand what they're going through, when you listen to what they need and help provide that for them when you're able to, that's a lot. Well, at least for me, I think I would say that shows a lot more support than trying to say the right thing to make them feel better.
I think also, like it was mentioned before, I think a really big way to kind of indirectly help them is by getting educated about these things. You know, there are dozens and dozens and hundreds of articles about anxiety and about bipolar disorder. And if you familiarize yourself, make your own self comfortable with the lingo and with the the normal things within that within those disorders, within those conditions, whenever your uncle or your friend feel like talking about it or anything like that, they open up to you, you can be prepared. You know, you can be prepared and knowledgeable in a little more than you would have been in what they might be feeling. And I think being educated in that sense will provide however small a sliver of comfort for the other person, because they know that you've shown them that you care enough to take time out of your own day, someone who potentially isn't experiencing the things that they are, to be able to identify with them and to be able to understand them to some extent. I think that's a good way of showing them that you really care, if you're worried about directly approaching them about it or asking them about it.
Also, a quick comment. It is really great that people are trying to show care, and also that's another thing that's really important. Like if you just showing that you care and showing that sort of love, that's also very helpful to anybody who's struggling with something.
A resource thing. So just two really fantastic resources if you really are looking for a reputable source of information, and it's all online as well. This NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They have all kinds of articles for family members, for parents, for whatever, just really good basic information. And NAMI is a national or possibly international organization of people who have been mental health consumers, but also their family and their caregivers and their loved ones. And right over in Fremont, there's an agency called FERC. It's Family Education Resource Center. They have a free library. They can get any book or any information that you need. It's all free. And every single person that works at FERC is somebody who had a very dear family loved one who had a severe mental illness. So they all totally know what it's like to actually go through it, to try to help someone navigate, the healthcare system, blah, blah, blah. So those are really great resources. And FERC is all free. And they're all just right near City Hall, actually, right near us.
Okay, so we received 2 questions which address the same topic. How would you inform parents about teen stress and depression?
I guess I'll take that because some of my work is parents. I mean, we're talking to you all, but also I want to keep in mind that we clearly know that sometimes we get ill just because. It's genetic, it's life stress, it's pressure. But sometimes families have a lot to do with it. And I get that. So when we talked about therapy, be mindful that we're not just talking about individual therapy, that family therapy can be extremely valuable. And one of the things that we're doing at YFS is we're expanding greatly our parenting workshops. Because actually a lot of parents, just like some of you, will sometimes do hurtful things, not because they don't mean well, but because they don't know what to do. And they may think like just saying, oh, don't worry about it. It's not a problem. Or just don't talk to that friend. Like, they may not know that, okay, well, that's really not helpful, or you just made me want to bury it even more. Or they don't understand things like, what's the right way to get help? Like, oh, her grades are down. We better hire a tutor. Well, no, not if it's because of her anxiety disorder, like finding the right solution. And so a lot of what we do is parenting education. And again, there's lots of info for parents to read. We're really designing a lot of information, especially targeting bicultural parents, because sometimes they're just not getting help or they're not listening because they're really afraid. A lot of our parents, like my parents, they come from countries where there's not really an understanding about outpatient mental health care, that it can very often be a very short-term thing. You learn some new skills, you're done. Some of our parents come from countries where it's like there's hospital and there's so-called normal. And they don't really get that there's this huge, huge, huge area in the middle where most of us live. And so really talking with parents, if you don't feel like you can do it, steer them to an adult, a counselor, a school person who can, and to give them the information.
As a parent, I encourage you guys, educate your parents, because I always tell my daughter that, well, I never been a mom, until I have her. So I have to learn from her how to be a mom. Of course, she has to learn from me how to be a daughter. So let's work together. So encourage your parents and learn from you too. And I believe that you already educate your parents a lot, because however, hopefully you will know more and how to educate them by not really yelling them back or talking them back, because that would trigger their emotional problem too. And as a parent, we feel very stressful too. Not only you guys try to compare with other kids and who is more successful. As a parent, we feel like, why the other kids are so successful? We feel under stress too, and then we have to remind ourselves and also remind our kids, everybody is very unique. The being successful is fully develop your own potential. See, a lot of limited edition merchandise is always very valuable. And think about, and who will be the same as you? You are the only one, in the whole universe. So nobody can compare with you. So you are so valuable. And just try to work hard and fully develop your potential and teach your parents, encourage them to recognize that too. They are the unique parents. There's no second one as same as they are.
So we want to thank you all for coming to this event. Can we please give a huge round of applause for So clearly 50 minutes is not enough time to talk about mental health. We have so many more amazing questions that we can't get to because of time constraints, but this is the point. We want to encourage you guys to ask each other these questions, and hopefully through this panel you'll have an idea of what it's like to have a conversation about mental health with your friends, with your teachers, and this issue doesn't just go away. And so hopefully you guys will continue to talk to your friends about mental health, reach out to that friend who's kind of quiet.